If you were to ask any college student why they were going to school or why they wanted to attend college, they would probably tell you that it's because it's an avenue of getting an education and something that they want to do in the future. And so they could have a social, multicultural experience where they could get to know students outside of the school atmosphere, where it be in extracurricular activities or parties where they could relax after studying. After hearing that, you would assume that college is an experience where students get a couple of different teaching styles and views, both paternalistic and progressive. In contrast, can you imagine going to a school that didn't offer any sports, specifically football? That the school didn't offer it because it believed, and I quote, that the purpose of the university is nothing less than to procure a moral, intellectual, and a spiritual revolution throughout the world. That it believed, and I quote again, football, fraternities, and fun have no place in the university, that they were only introduced to entertain those who shouldn't be in the university. End quote. I couldn't. I've always grown up in schools where they're very proud of their athletic programs and the students that are involved with them. Robert Hutchins, on the other hand, believed these views and changed the educational system towards his beliefs. As a quick biography of Robert Hutchins, he was born on January 17th, 1899 in New York, but was raised in Ohio. He was a brilliant man. He went to college when he was 16 years old. He enlisted in the Army for a short time and came back. And when he came back, he graduated from the law school at Yale University. When he received his law degree in 1925, he was hired as a professor, and a couple years later, in 1928, he was promoted to dean of the law school, which I believe is one of the youngest deans they've had. But after being dean for a time, he became head chairman of the Ford Foundation and later founded the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions in Santa Barbara, California. He had a successful life, but there are a series of things we give him credit for. First, he reorganized how we view degrees between bachelor's and master's. I guess before that the bachelor's was more prone to being very generalized, like an associate's, but that a bachelor's is able to kind of provide that way where you can take more specific classes guaranteed towards your degree, which is awesome. The second, he replaced grades with comprehensive exams, which I completely agree with. I think that's awesome. I'm not really a fan of grades. I like just if you understand something, you get that. But third, much to the student's chagrin, he eliminated varsity football at the school. And fourth, he restarted the Great Books Club. He helped in the publication of the great books of the Western World and Encyclopedia Britannica. That was the fifth one. Sixth, he promoted freedom in an educational setting. And this was around the time of World War II with the atomic bomb and everything, because I believe that was also being constructed on campus or on that campus. And kind of, and lastly, talked extensively on the ideals of the American people and how it shapes the educational system. This was really interesting because you hear all the time that teachers change schools and that state boards are where they change school policy and curriculums. Hutchins was different. He viewed changes as possible through the people, that the way our schools were structured was because of the ideals of the people. He wrote an interesting paper regarding on how the American ideals shape the American education, and where he described that the wants and needs of the Americans shape how we look at education and how it can help us attain those wants and needs. He said, and I quote, "The educational system that any country has will be the system that the country wants. It will be in general adapted to the needs and ideals of that country as they are interpreted at any given time. The fundamental proposition which I wish to advance is that whatever is honored in a country will be cultivated there. A means of cultivating it is the educational system. You may be sure, therefore, that the American educational system will be engaged in the cultivation of whatever is honored in the United States. Its weaknesses will be the weaknesses of American ideals. Hutchins kind of goes on to explain that one of the main American ideals is money. That in this society, we want money, we hope for money. I mean, we work for money, and we hope to make a living with money. And I think as an American people, we pretty much worship money, that it's just one of those big things. That being said, our educational system reflects it. To go to school, we need money, but to get a job, to get more money, we need to go to school. It's kind of one of those questions, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? That it's just kind of interesting, the dichotomy between the two. But Americans and students see education as not only a way to grow in knowledge and expand minds, but as an avenue towards something that will bring us money to make a living and to earn more money. That this is a very influential thing because we're right in the middle of it. We're going to school to become more qualified for a job that will provide a steady income. And I believe Hutchins had a view that has really just broadened my own understanding, that I can help shape minds and views in a teaching position that will help better educational systems. That as teachers and as future teachers, we can help change the American ideals. We as a people shape our education. It doesn't shape us because our educational systems are shaped in a way that benefit us. If an educational system is frustrated or becomes something that we don't agree with or like, we need to look to the people because it's shaped and formed after their desires and ideals. His paper was really interesting because, that whole thing that education is something that's great. It's something that is shaped by the people and through its ideals, and sometimes the way that a school is structured, albeit, bachelor's and master's, and the way we go about getting an education, that it's really important on understanding the ideals of the people, because I think that's where you see the most change. And I believe Robert Hutchins did that. He changed an educational system into something that's great. Though there are some things that have been changed today, like the football, where it's instituted back into schools, that there are certain things like a bachelor's and a master's, and the way that teaching is, that it really just helps view and shape American ideals. And I think that's wonderful. And I think he's a brilliant man. And I've really enjoyed getting to know him better. And yeah, Robert Hutchins he was definitely very influential in our educational system.